This is not my usual form of content, and it is more akin to my friend's Warblade Omega video, just like how he did with King Kong versus Zeb the Giganotosaurus from Jurassic Park. I'm gonna be doing the same. ARK Rex vs Anjanath. And well, usually debates between Monster Hunter and ARK tend to be really fun. I'll give them that. This is no different. Two Tyrannosauroids fighting each other, which both of them have very fun scaling to go at. I'm not gonna go in depth as I usually go. I'm just gonna more read. This is gonna be more of a rant video more than anything. This video whole gimmick is supposed to be more how powerful I believe these characters are. Some people like to highball them, some like to lowball them. I have a more conservative estimate for how powerful these two characters are, as I believe they are closer in power than some people make them out to be. But without any further ado, let's begin. In terms of overall physical strength and size, you could argue that Anjanath should be stronger, however, this is where, before anyone starts, size actually matters in the debate. Usually when you're covering two fictional characters, size is the last thing you go after. But since both of these characters are in the same ranges of power, size could actually be helpful. By my calculations that I performed myself, the ARK Tyrannosaurus should be in the between 900 to 100 and plus tons, as the fact that he would upscale the size of multiple real-life Tyrannosaurus would mean that he would be way heavier than anything Anjanath has seen before. Sure, Anjanath can sometimes wrangle and tangle with creatures like Diablos or even Bearoff to a certain extent, but ARK Rexes in terms of overall mass would be heavier overall in comparison to the creatures Anjanath takes on. That's not to say that Anjanath is going to be completely outclassed, but I do believe if we go by physical strength, I think they're somewhat equal overall. Sure, Anjanath has crazier showings, but ARK Rex has, well, size, just raw size. Now let's get into the actual strength tier, which is attack potency. And this is where people get weirdly kind of itchy on it, because they argue that Anjanath should just be country level or island level because they can compete with stronger creatures and not immediately die. However, I would argue that that makes no sense, and I don't feel like that's really consistent with how they're portrayed continuously. They aren't really shown to be high tier creatures that can really, defend themselves against actual high tier creatures like Devil Joe. So even if you want to go with that line of scaling, boom, there you have it. Continental level Rex now. Continental plus. The problem with this is that it really is 50. And if I were to be really dishonest, I would just pull up the grenades. The gravity grenade to be more precise. Because with those, you can get literally the ARK's creatures into star level. The creatures, not the bosses, not anything else, the creatures themselves. And I'll not do that because that's really dishonest and really not sustainable in any way, shape, or form. It's very likely that the Dreadmare's wormhole is more of a hacks-based thing, and the grenades are so as well. So I would say consistently, you can get both of these guys into the same block levels of power, with maybe a slight edge going into Anjanath, but I can also argue that the ARK Rex also reaches the same level of power. Speed-wise, I would argue it's a tie. Yes, consistently speaking, Anjanath should be, maybe above it, but when it comes to actual speed and what these characters scale off, the ARK Rex consistently can scale to characters and creatures like the Griffin, who can break the sound barrier by flying so fast, and the Survivor, which can dodge the rocket, which, as I saw multiple times, gets into the subsonic plus level ranges. However, you can argue much higher if you take some certain liberties with the scaling. And so does as well to a certain extent, as he's able to combat and somewhat fight against Rathalos, which, well, yes, Rathalos normally beats, he's not getting blitzed out of oblivion. So personally, I believe that speed-wise, the ARK Rex is just not cutting out, but Anjanath is not too far behind, so I would say it's a tie. So in terms of abilities and hacks, this one is not even a debate. The Rex has nothing on his side. His best, like, argument for an ability is not really an ability. His bite in the dossier is described as being able to crunch through any armor, which it's kind of iffy if it really applies, as in-game they don't really get any bonus or anything. However, it's a lore statement, so perhaps it could hold up, because, you know, the Rex is probably one of the least loved creatures in the game. Meanwhile, Anjanath here has, well, superhuman strength, superhuman durability, superhuman endurance, superhuman stamina, the fact that he can breathe fire. He basically outclasses the Rex in terms of actually being, you know, versatile in terms of overall power. But now, what's the next one we should tackle on? I know, what about experience? What are these two creatures able to fight, and how much experience would they realistically have? While real-life Tyrannosaurus would only cap at 30 years old, it is not impossible to say that, well, it's not impossible at all to say that the Rex should just be older than that, including Anjanath as well. I don't think neither of these two die at 30. In terms of experience and how they fight and what creatures they fight, I would say that the ARK Rex probably outclasses a bit, given that the fact that they are more common in more areas, but are still threats to most of the creatures around them and to face a variety of foes. Next category that I kind of want to tackle about is how would size impact this fight, and in all honesty, I gotta be saying the Rex being taller, higher, and likely heavier would give him an edge. Because, yeah, before anyone says I'm going off the Goji Center logic, I am not. When two characters from a fictional setting have the same stats, size can be a good argument, because the thing about size is not the problem that size is not the sole factor that determines which character wins in a fight. It is a factor. It is just it's not the factor you should focus on. We all know who wins between Rexy versus King Kong from 2005 King Kong, Goku versus King Kong, and size really doesn't matter between Kong and Goku. However, let's say the Carno from Camp Cretaceous or the Allosaurus from Battle at Big Rock. In that situation, Kong can defeat them both. Yes, oh, these small buildings, they outscale him, which it's not really true. It's not a 10 times gap. Plus, Kong can fight creatures heavier than they are. He's more experienced, he's faster. So, realistically, neither the Carno nor the Allosaurus can beat Kong. Neither do the Velociraptors. Well, yes, you can get them really high if you think they can take down the large theropods of the franchise, but they don't really seem to have good durability overall. So after all of that, who do I think wins this? And just like I did with my short, I would argue that unfortunately the T-Rex wins with extreme difficulty by the skin of his teeth. Because you should have to remember, physically speaking, they're somewhat equal in terms of overall power. Anjanath is not really slower, they're actually in the same tier consistently. But in terms of attack potency, Anjanath just doesn't have the same absurd upscaling the ARK Rex has. And due to the fact that their ARK Rex is larger, would also mean that he can control how the fight plays out in its favor. While Anjanath would struggle a lot, And the ARK Rex would be dealing way more damage given the statement that he can, pierce through armor, pierce through reinforced hides of creatures in his verse, which are also relative to Anjanath in terms of overall power. So while I do agree that it's not an easy victory for the ARK Rex, I don't think it's really one-sided at all. If you want a more close debate, we can have Alpha Rex versus Fulgur Anjanath. That's one interesting that I probably will talk about in the future. Maybe not, maybe yes. But let me know what you guys think. Please leave a comment down below if you disagree. That's fine. Just be civil about it. That's it. See you all next time.